Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you, as usual, from the Extreme Studios in the Pinellas Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have from the great Midwest one, RDV. And RDV, in a world where we have volcanoes starting to spew over in Hawaii, where we have the heat dome in your part of the world, where we have no rain at all here in Central Florida, which is not only, we call that summertime. And I fondly remember a summertime going back approximately 40 years ago where I watched a martial arts film called Kill and Kill Again, a sequel that has a lot of great things about it, and it's a fantastic little hidden gem. We've covered the first one several years ago on the movie show, and I want to know your initial take because I think for you this was a first watch, sir.
So what's crazy about this is that we just read a comic book called Moon Knight, which came out in 1981, and it came out in May of 1981. I believe this came out in April of 1981 when it was released. And the crazy thing about Marvel comic books, I swear the guy who wrote the Doug Mensch, I think he might have watched this movie because it's the same thing as far as people using drugs to do mind control. When we had the same plot with a guy who was running opium field, but he needed the villagers. So
that is so old school.
Yeah, so he's
and it comes from the military.
Yeah, so he was over in like some other country, and he was a American who was over there, and he was basically playing on the whole voodoo fears and all stuff, and drugging people to make them work for free to help go with his opium fields. So this movie is about a guy, a scientist, not a scientist, but a scientist basically discovered the potatoes.
Oh, potatoes.
Potatoes. Mm-hmm. He could like fuel the world multiple times. It's looking over just in every year. It's a renewable basically crop source for putting gasoline in the cars. But there's a side effect though that they said. You can also mind control. So of course you get an evil warlord guy who wants to make himself the new Jesus or new Roman god, as he calls him Marmaduke. Is it Marmaduke? Marduk. I kept thinking you were saying Marmaduke.
No, Marduk, Babylonian, I believe.
Yeah, the Babylonian god. And yeah, he basically wants to put the stuff into the water and basically make everybody his slaves. And of course, because it's the 80s, you got his sidekick, basically, I wouldn't say she's bad looking, but she has the short hair and she has the bright neon pink, kind of punk look.
May I describe the setup, please?
Sure.
So this is a mind control James Bond sort of knockoff with a great evil henchman who has an impeccable baritone, and he's got Cyndi Lauper as a sidekick, surrounded by a bunch of beautiful ladies who, as we all know, likes to run an evil martial arts dojo because he wants the Optimist, the guy that's his number one, to fight Steve Chase.
Optimus, not Optimist.
That's what I said. I did not say the T at the end. I said Optimist, not Optimist.
I'm just clarifying other people who may miss.
I'm just saying, this guy is phenomenal, and you know what? He delivers the goods.
The whole movie was enjoyable, and I'd say it's almost like Magnificent Seven with the James Bond theme. You got the main guy who's like, he gets a team back together.
It's Steve Chase.
Steve Chase, aka James Ryan.
Legit martial artist.
People are wondering, like, the Kill and Kill Again. Why are we doing this? Because 3 years ago we did Kill or Be Killed, also known as in the United States as the Karate Killer. These are both South African movie productions.
As was the second best ninja movie of all time, starring Franco Nero, and that would be Enter the Ninja.
Yeah,
but I digress.
I gotta say though, compared to the first one, this was miles better. They finally figured out what works. It went from the first movie being in 1976. This is now 1981. It's kind of got that kind of Delta Force kind of feeling. You got the main guy would basically, if this was a canon film, this would be Chuck Norris's role.
I was exactly thinking that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and he gets all these guys together to get the tough like strong black guy. It basically would be like your remember Dudikoff? Was his name Steve something?
It's probably Steve Chase.
No. I'm talking about an American Ninja.
Right. It's probably Steve Chase.
I don't think it is.
Okay. I don't know. I don't remember.
Regardless, though, the guy that was with him, they went in and took down the whole dojo. Honestly, it's a basic plot, but it works. You got the girl who wants to come along because her father's a scientist, or so we think. We found out she can hold her own a little bit. Overall, this was entertaining. Everybody had their own. There's a guy named Hot Dog in here. And like when you introduce every character, like first the guy is a construction yard, the black guy is a construction yard, and he's like your unstoppable, like
He's the bull.
Yeah, he's the
He's
bull.
the tank.
He's the tank, and he's got a tug of war with these other construction crew guys on his, and he pulls them all by one into the water except for Steve Chase.
Steve Chase.
Steve Chase, yes, not Steve.
Good thing I didn't say that.
Yeah, I know. So I love every character. We get this mysterious character named the Fly, who's never really fights at all, but we see him in there, like in there's like these vision quests that he does.
He doesn't fly; he levitates.
Yes, and my gosh, this was just a fun movie. Rob, when you suggested this, I was dreading it.
Really?
Up until today, and then I started watching it. You can watch it. We posted links up there. You can watch it on Tubi TV. It's
Great
okay.
print.
It's okay. I mean, I don't know if it's Tubi. Remember, it's very low budget. This is like a $7 million, even if it was even that. But there's certain scenes when they film where they're outside. It's really like faded.
You think so?
It was
My
darker.
print looked great.
On Tubi, it was kind of dark. But when they're inside, it was much brighter. But it wasn't too bad. You could still clearly make out what's going on. You get used to it. Because it wasn't HD. That's probably what it was.
Mine was super HD. Mine looked great. I think it's on Prime as well. Sometimes on Tubi, I've noticed that they'll default to a different selection. I don't know if that's the software interface built into your smart TV and how that works. I've had some issues even with some of the streaming channels doing that. It's kind of annoying.
I made sure mine was on 720p because that's all available on there.
Gotcha.
I never watch anything online streaming. I get rid of the auto select.
Mm-hmm.
It's always on. If it's 720, I watch it. If it's not in 720, I'm not watching anything in 480p.
No.
Sorry, it's not worth it to me. But anyway, getting back to this, James Ryan is Stephen Chase. Very smooth, calm, collective, very witting. I'm getting like vibes from as far as like Jean-Claude Van Damme's vibes, but he looks like Jim Varney.
No, this guy's actually almost decent looking.
No, but I'm saying when you've seen Jim Varney outside of Ernest, that's basically what I'm looking at.
So here's the thing about his cadre, the team that he has to assemble to help him rescue this scientist that's under the guise of mind control. So yes, you have your tank guy. You've got your beautiful blonde bombshell who can handle herself and is not expected to make breakfast, even though she's asked to do that, right?
Yep.
So the Fly you mentioned already, but here's the thing with this movie. Let me back up a little bit because I want to joke and pop on a little bit, but let's take a look back. The first movie was kind of weird and kind of dated, and I was like, man, I don't remember if this is good or really cheesy. I found myself enjoying it, but one of the things we've always talked about, especially in action films, specifically in martial arts that we've been doing for a while, is have a great opening gambit. They do. He's got some pretty stupid, cheesy ass lines about, oh, the champagne must be domestic. They bring him champagne to his room where she invites him up. It's really cliche kind of stuff, but it's done well enough. And because it's a South African film, there has to be, I think, some intentional casting because the guy that's giving the award ceremony at whatever the Sun City place is, probably South Africa, he's a knockoff James Coburn. Hot Dog is somebody whose name I can't remember, but we know him.
Bill Flynn is the actor.
Yeah, but then you also have got the tank guy who's Jamaican and has an accent, which reminds me of Keith David. And then you have the guy from the trailer park reminds me of somebody. But here's the thing. These are all legitimate fighters from the South African scene. So they're not actors primarily. But like we've talked about, do something smart. Yeah. Demonstrate something simple. Don't make it too complicated. Some rich people want to do it because of the so-called energy crisis. But here's the thing with Marduk. He's an above average villain. And the way he talks, it's great. And it's funny because he's like one of these guys. And he has we're reviewing Columbo season 1, the original TV show on here, right? You're aware of that.
Yeah.
So in 1994, William Shatner starred in the second episode, episode, I guess, for lack of a better term, in Columbo. And it's Butterfly and Shades of Grey, where he plays like a Rush Limbaugh, like conservative political commentator with a really horrible mustache. And his name is Fielding Chase. So it's funny because when I look at this, I go, did the writers really like this film? Because every time Marduk says it, and it's like an inside joke, he's very complimentary of Steve Chase, but he goes, He talks in this really weird cadence, and it never changes. Where he's like, you must be disciplined. Of course, I look forward to meeting Steve Chase. The guy's delivery is on fire, but what takes away from it, other than his delivery and his great composure, is the fact that he's got the worst possible glued on beard I've ever seen. It's worse than middle school prosthetics. It's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, you can tell there's no back to it whatsoever. It just goes here, and see, with his mustache was glued on too. Everything.
It was so bad, and like, if it was great though. Better, it would have been great. It was great in that sort of way because he was delivering it so seriously, right? And he wasn't over the top. He was just good enough. Another thing too is when he's delivering some great speech, talking like this, you see all these beautiful, nearly naked ladies laying around him, sunning themselves. Because when you're an evil warlord, women attach themselves to you. They want to be in your circle, right? They don't talk. He doesn't throw them money. They're not giggling. They're just sunning themselves, right? In beautiful South Africa on the evil ranch where he's got a karate studio, like, 1,000 people, a compound, if you will, like Jim Jones. But the thing is the comedy relief is the sidekick, Cyndi Lauper, who's got that pink hair, because and again, she does this in all of her scenes. Every time she says something to him, because she's the brains behind it, she gives him a cute little pet nickname.
Minerva.
Minerva. She's like, whatever you say, Chuckles, whatever you say, Pumpkin, whatever you say, Sweet Cheeks. It's awesome.
Dimples.
Dimples. And he's like, I really wish you wouldn't call me that around the ladies. It's silly enough, and if you're juvenile watching it, you go, this is dumb. But here's my point on a serious note. When we talk about the last John Wick movie, what was the one character that I immediately popped over? Do you remember?
John Wick movie. Real Bravo?
No, the John Wick 4.
Oh, John Wick. I'm thinking John Wick.
John Wick 4.
John Wick 4. The
character I popped over.
I imagine
Fat
it was
Boy.
What's that?
Fat Boy.
Oh, you mean your
It seems, Mr. Wick, we have ourselves quite the situation.
The guy.
You remember the character?
I can remember the character, but I refuse to remember the actor because I hate him.
Scott Adkins.
Scott, yes.
But the point is, this is a character. Let me ask you this: when we reviewed the last Mission Impossible, what immediately comes to mind? What scene?
Mission Impossible, the very last one, and well, to me, it's always the train scene.
Okay.
The actors.
The point is when you remember a movie, you're remembering characters and specific scenes. What this movie does very smartly, as juvenile as it sounds, is they keep it simple. The characters, as one note as they are, to your point, you start off by not even knowing their names, but knowing one was a tank, one was like a mystical kind of guy, like the cleric, one was kind of like the fighter. I mean, he was getting his band of merry men with him while he's the Pied Piper leading them on the mission, including a woman.
Yeah, Gorilla was the black actor.
Fly, what does a fly do? He crawls, he disappears, he does things, right?
Fly was basically he wanted nothing to do anything. He was kind of a mystical. He'd always kind of been like in visions, that's about it. But you never really. I was like, why is he even there? He's just like, I understand if he's going to his mentor, his mentor is passed on and giving him advice.
Yes.
Kind of like in Kung Fu, something like that.
Exactly. And it reminds you of Kung Fu because what do when they're talking? It's a black background with a bunch of candles, right? Just like Kung Fu.
And you can levitate, then I'll follow you.
You're ready to leave.
Yeah.
And so they're doing the right things by creating these scenes that it's not a movie with a plot. A plot exists to drive the characters that you can kind of remember from scene to scene. You have your bar fight scene, you have your big fight at the end. By now, if you're any kind of martial arts, you recognize what this movie is, even if you don't know anybody in it.
There's a reason for this. They based the characters off the A-Team. You got the big gorilla guy who hates flying.
The A-Team came after this.
I know, but I'm saying it's very similar to that concept. So if you could say maybe they had the same idea before, or someone watched this. But I'm saying I had the same concept. You had the guy, who's kind of like you got Gypsy, then you have the guy from the junkyard, Gypsy.
Role players.
Yeah. You have Hot Dogs, Murdoch.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you have, and that's great. That's what's great about last storytelling. When you actually have such characters that are excelling at what they do, like you have the demolition guy, you have the guy who's good at just being the
charisma guy, the confidence guy, the safe cracker, the fighter.
That's
hacker, right? That was a big thing in the 90s.
Honestly, like I said, this got a bad movie, got a bad rep because it's at a 4. It should be up in a 7. At least a 6 or 7. It was just fun, entertaining. And then you got the main guy who's basically like he's not really over the top, but he's kind of like he says he's not one of the best. He is the best. Mm-hmm. And this guy, the villain, you said with the girl, with Minerva, like Marduk, like he basically is like he's kind of like he has to hypnotize everybody because nobody respects him, not even. And with the help of this chick, this girl, he's able to do this. He takes over a whole entire town using the scientist's drugs, and he keeps like everybody on like basically on the drug, and they have to keep taking the doses. I love how the scientist basically leads them on, thinking like, oh, it takes him every 5 days. With him, with the drug wears off in 2 days, so he's basically just been planning behind his back. Just that there's like so many fights in here. There's the fight in the very beginning. We're introduced to Steve Chase.
Look here's the thing with the fights.
Yeah.
It's not slowed down, but they're not going fast. But they're going fast enough for the American audience to sit there and just kind of watch what they're doing. This is the kind of speed you would go out in your yard with your brother or something like that, or your friends, and fight like at this speed. It's silly kind of sounding, but there's some neat moves because he uses the extended fingers to the throat a lot, right? Mm-hmm. The chop to the throat. And then he does a lot of flippy kicks, which I wasn't a fan of, but I like the flippy kicks in the hotel room. And frankly, at the casino hotel, we don't get a lot of martial arts fights in casino hotels.
No, we don't. We really don't get much of anything casinos anymore. If anything, casinos is like Ocean's 11. That's the closest you get to anything casino stuff.
Make casinos great again.
There's a scene where he jumps on the tree branch and swings around it and hits a guy. I love it. Like I said, this movie stands out so much more than other a lot of martial art movies that you see, especially American ones. Even though this wasn't American, it's a South African. It was still fun. And honestly, I wanted to have a third one. The third one is because James Ryan had said if they made a third one, it would be James Bond, pretty much spoof.
Right, it definitely see that way.
And the great thing about this, everybody in there was pretty much like knew how to do martial arts, except for Hot Dog. Hot Dog wasn't really,
that was the point.
So Hot Dog though, he's on the plane and everyone's just kind of like just doing the thing, and he's got a box
gearing up.
I'm like, what's he got there? A box of thumbtacks. He's like, what's those for? And he's like, oh, you never know, and So in the middle of the fight, when they're being attacked on the second fight, because the first one was a bar fight. This is your canon classic bar fight. Even the girl gets involved. The second one is while they're driving, this guy comes up, tries to tell me, like, turn around, you go this way, and they basically get a fight. And it's first it's Steve and this other guy, and then and then his 3 friends come out, and then. So then it's like, well, Steve's like, I got my own friends. They come behind him. And then like all the other band comes, all these other guys come. So you get the whole
tons of bodies.
Here. Yeah, I love it. And I love how they stand, everybody in Steve's group, they all stand in one single line, and then they're surrounded by guys on each side. And they take them out one by one. I love because Hot Dog is basically, he's not a martial arts guy, but he uses, he cheats. So he throws thumbtacks on the ground. I'm thinking like, there's my wrestling pop right there.
Yeah.
And what's great about this is that at the end he steps on the thumbtack. The gorilla basically like now who's sensitive now, because he teased me before.
Here's the thing: I don't know what this is called when it's writing, but this is very apparent, right? So, like for example, what you kind of just described, but I'll reference a scene earlier when Steve goes to recruit the tank. The tank's on a construction site, and like you say, it's a great way because this movie doesn't talk a lot. It lets you just see what's going on. So you're like, oh, he's going to go see this guy. Oh, this one dude's got the strength of 5 men. They're doing tug of rope over this big, dirty water pit, and the guy wins and all that. And so what does he do? He opens up by saying, hey, that color looks good on you because the guy got splashed. They're talking or doing or whatever. So at the end, it's like, well, will he or won't he join? And we know, of course, he's going to. So the boss comes over and is like, hey, you're fucking around with my guys, man. Don't do that or I'll fire you. He's like, you can't do that. And he's like, yeah, I will. And he's egging him on. He's like, well, don't let him do that to you. And he's like, well, you can't fire me because I quit. He's like, no. So they get into a fight and he throws the guy away. It's stupid. It's dumb. It's simplistic. But here's the thing. At the end, he goes and he hugs Steve and he's like, Steve. And then Steve is all soaking wet and he goes, I think that color looks good on you. So that's how they started and ended. And a lot of these
Yeah,
scenes are like it. They're introducing a trait about the person, and you see it in action going on. So like when you meet Fly, the weird thing is he comes out and he's standing on his feet, but you don't see his feet move, and it's like he's gliding to the side, which is weird. But before that, all you do is you see a long candle with a bunch of long matchsticks that you just see a pair of feet go out like hands, hold it steady, pull one out, strike it, and light it. I'm like, that's stupid, but I've never seen another film, and somebody did it, and I liked it. Just like when the fight towards the end, where they're heading towards the compound or whatever, when the truckload of guys come up, or the motorcycle group, right? And this is after the bar fight. They have their helmets on, so they're trying to have to hit them not in their head. But he captures a guy, and you see Steve from the back, and what does he do? He just kicks up, bending at the kneecap, and splits the dude motorcycle cap in half. Stupid, dumb, but I like it because I haven't seen it. Just like when I think of The Last Starfighter, I think of trailer parks, right? Because trailer parks aren't sexy. Some people might say Breaking Bad briefly, but for me, when I think of trailer parks, I think of how shitty looking this trailer park was. We recruited the one drunk guy, and what does he do? The guy who's run the place won't give him a security deposit, so he sends the muscle guys at him. So that's how we see him fight, right? And he fights kind of like not drunken style, but kind of that way. So it's so simplistic, but you know what? The guy who wrote this has only written 4 movies, and this was his first one. The next one he did was a good one, The Evil That Men Do. That's that I think that might be a Canada film, but of course that's Charles Bronson. And you know what he did that same year? Missing in Action. So the guy knows what he's doing, even though he hasn't written a lot of films. So I was kind of impressed by that. It seemed like, oh, well, this is a simple, easy movie, but that's how you do it. You remember these scenes.
So this movie, the way they set up, introduce everybody is if anybody's watched Hawk the Slayer, the exact same party campaign. How you go, you find everybody and you get your party together, and it works perfectly. I said I love it. Like they get the gorilla excited. He when he's there, construction worker. He's like there.
He headbutts you. That's his finishing move.
Instead of they're working, they're playing tug of war. Yeah, the boss comes up and says, quit force around and get back to work. It's like, and basically, and like he's like, the guy fires him. He's like, well, you're fired. He's like, no, you can't fire me. I quit. And and he picks him up. He's like, you quit first, But then they go to Gypsy. Gypsy's in the junkyard, and he now this is like about Gypsy. I'm like, we just saw a guy who basically was like as strong as an ox, beating up other guys. Gypsy basically gets his ass handed to him for the most part. He's got a bunch of guys coming in, and then eventually gets the upper hand. And you see him, he climbs the top of these old pickup trucks, does a front forward flip, and then another one up the hood and onto the ground. Those are so I like that. I wasn't expecting that. And at the end, he's like, because he was telling Steve, come help me. He's like, and then Steve says like, did you really want my help at all? He's like, no, not really. I had fun. They go to what's the guy? After they get that, they go get Hot Dog. Hot Dog is in the barn, and he's got these revolver, and they're taking bets, and you got these. For those who remember, like when you get those fancy dinners, at the rich people they have the little plate, and they have the silver thing cover goes over it. They're putting on the money in there. He's like, okay, basically he puts a bullet in there. He's like, he's counting up 1, 6, round 6, and he just throws it across the floor, and it fires off. And then if you survive, you win. And I love it, like he basically guy walks up to him, and he's like, grabs a cigar out of his mouth. I love these movies when you have the guy who's really butts of a cigar left, takes it out, puts it in his alcohol, smokes it, puts it in the guy's mouth.
Well, I might say I'm a Scotch and tequila guy. I'm not really a heavy drinker at all. I hardly drink it, and I hardly smoke cigars anymore. But I always thought there was something, and I forget what it was called, where you dip something in alcohol for a taste or something like that. And I can't remember what it is, and I didn't even bother looking it up because I thought as a kid that was one of the most disgusting things I ever saw. But you think about it, it's ludicrous. The way they recruit him in this old little warehouse area, he's got a bunch of guys, and they're placing bets. They're playing Russian roulette, but they're playing it in a real goofy way where he takes the gun, and it looks like he's putting in a blank, right? To scare everybody. And what he does is he takes the gun after they place the bets, and they put it under the food chef container thingy, right?
Yeah.
and he just throws it into the air till it hits like the wall or the ceiling and it flies off. And one guy gets even shot in the leg. I'm going, this is stupid.
Yeah, so he's not.
But I remember that scene because you don't see anything else like that.
Yeah, he's not putting any blanks because one guy gets hit and then later on he gets shot in the leg and he just crawls out. I'm done. He's like, so then when you see Steve, the door's closed, speaking through it, and then the guy he whistles, or weird like the Negan whistle or something like that, and he comes over.
Their code, they're animal code signals.
Yeah, so cuckoo. Yeah, like comes over, taco, and then he's got his beer in his hand, and he's like, I catch you guys, I'm really busy, I don't want to get in there. And the guy's like, hey, round 12, 10. And he also you heard the gun go off, and the bullet go through, it breaks his bottle of his glass of his bottle. Like he's just holding there. He's like, yeah, I'm really busy, Of course, he gets intimidated by a gorilla. Gorilla lifts him up. He's like, when are we leaving? But I love it because he's like, and I love in the back you hear the guy. He's like, what do you guys got? You guys worried about? You can win big. You have nothing to lose except your life. There's the one-liners in this.
There's a lot of them. Every scene closes with a one-liner.
I love it. There's even at the very end, the bad guy he's going to shoot the scientist. This one henchman goon. He pulls out the Dirty Harry, Magnum. He's going to fire off the shot, and then they show a close-up of the bullet coming out of it. But you can tell by that they basically filmed the bullet never being in that gun. It's fired from a different gun. But They wanted to have that. Because obviously, if the guy with the holding, if he would have fired a gun, he would have hit himself in the face.
Yeah.
But so you see the bullet flying, and then here comes like Steve with his like metal black plate and dives in the middle, and then hits the plate, and reflects, and then he hits a guy in the face with the plate, and and at the end, it's just such a crazy movie. Gypsy, and I think for what it was, Gypsy puts his bare foot out, and then another guy puts his hand out, and he lifts him up that way off the ground. It's such an interesting the way they do stuff with this. And when he first meets Gorilla, Steve does in the movie, I'm thinking like I went back to Predator. You son of a bitch. I think I'll get waiting for that. But,
it feels like that way.
It does that every time.
When people saw Predator, they hadn't seen something like it before. But really, it's the same setup.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a monster.
This is such a fun movie. From 1981, it came out. He said it came out in May. I think I had the budget here. It's a budget of $7 million. Or actually, not the budget. The box office was $7 million. They never really give the budget, but it was very low budget.
Yeah.
Like they have the characters are Anneline Kriel.
Anneline Kriel. Yeah.
Anneline Kriel, who actually did her own stunts. She did her own stunts in this.
She did fine.
Yeah. Stan Schmidt, he's the one that played the Fly. He died in 2019. He was 83 years old. I was looking up the cast members to see who's actually still around, and he was a legitimate. He was Shotokan karate.
Okay.
He was it was 8th Dan karate in his rank, or JK, whatever that is. It's like these guys were like legit, like actual guys who could fight. Gampu played. He died in 2003. He was in some other movies. He was in Joe Bullet, some other ones like Forever Young. A lot of these guys are not alive anymore, but like these are legit, like just fun. I recommend this. Don't watch the first one, just watch this one because they're not even connected, as far as I remember. There's nothing really connecting them.
Yeah, I agreed. You do not have to watch either one or any order. And the first one's got some weird, I would say, dated reference because it was 1976. And the whole thing too is obviously the world's changed a lot in the past 50 years. It's always on fire in some areas, and South Africa's had its own issues depending on how you perceive to look at them back then and what's going on today and stuff. So you get a young woman like this who's the generic love interest kind of whatever, but can handle herself sort of thing. This is not really, I would say, an American movie. It's just a movie because if you notice, they do have a little bit of an accent, they speak English. So it's a little different. Nothing wrong with it. It's interesting because I'm not going to say it's better the Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, which you thought was overrated, and I agreed with you. And that's one of the reasons why when we watched the film, we watched the woman getting chased where she refused to get raped. We ended up going down to watch a couple of her films, which we really liked. That was one of the last ones we reviewed. And to me, I look at this and go, with the girls with gun stuff we've been watching, it's interesting because you go, the karate in here is not good. It's not scary. It's not painful looking, but it's good enough. It's fine enough. And there's some okay stunts. It's not bad. So is it on a level of some of these other films? No, but I've seen worse. I've seen worse editing and dumb shit. This is just kind of juvenile enough. And it's a bit more entertaining than what, or whatever. And talking about it, sometimes when you talk about a movie, it's a lot funnier than watching the movie. I've had that experience. So sometimes talking about it sucks, but you're watching, you're having a great time. This is ones where I talk about, I'm almost forgetting here my final thoughts. So one of the things I want to mention is the deadly psychological potion, because it's in a water-based form. The transmission vector, since I get a chance to sound like a nerd, of course they wanted to put it in a water supply to control everybody. But when Steve Chase beats Optimus at the end, he's furious, he's beside himself. So Marduk says, "Steve Chase, congratulations on your victory. However, you must drink this and fight all your friends. If you do not, I will kill you right now." Is there something silly, right? So he makes them drink, and I thought this is kind of cool. He defeats the bad guy, and so what does he have to do? He has to now fight his friends. You don't see that coming, right? So he forces them to drink it, right? And what is it? It's glorious, delicious, and at the time, ladies and gentlemen, 1981, this is extremely rare. It was blue Kool-Aid in a wine cup. It was, right? You see him, and it's great acting. He's trembling like he's almost getting ready to break the glass, and he chugs a big gulp of it, and then they fight him. But whatever. So it's not bad.
I was trying to remember the guy who plays Gorilla here, Ken Gampu. I was trying to remember where I've seen before. You ever watch those King Solomon stuff movies?
With Richard Chamberlain, he was in everything. Yes.
Well, David McCallum was in one of them, King Solomon's Treasure. They had and Patrick McEnany, and so he was in there along with that, and then he was also in the King Solomon's Mines as well too. The Wild Geese, The Gods Must Be Crazy. I was reading up about him, and like this Ken Gampu was actually one of the first black South African actors to actually make it big in Hollywood for a little bit.
Yeah.
But like I said, this is free on Tubi. I guarantee you, if you got anybody watch it, you'll enjoy it. As long it's stupid fun. That's what I'm going to say there. I'm not going to say it's the most serious movie, even though they tried. Yeah. The guy, the villain, is no different than having the villain and missing in action.
Marduk is very memorable to me.
He is. He's well, we have the actor from Commando, the villain, same guy. He was a villain in there. I'm not obviously not the one with the knife, not Bennett. I'm gonna kill you, Bennett.
Yeah, the homosexual undertones of that movie,
no,
which we'll be exploring here soon.
But the villain, the main dictator guy,
mm-hmm.
So like I said, these are, you may not always remember the actors, but you'll recognize them once you see them in a movie. And honestly, I was looking at more of James Ryan's stuff. He's not much at all. The most recent thing he was in was a Scott Eastwood movie about surfing in 2015. I was called, but
one last thing I'll sit there and say, just a rhetorical question here.
Yeah.
Because like I was starting to think about these guys. I knew of James Ryan. I've looked him up before. I just don't remember much about him. I'm like looking at him now, and I'm like, he isn't really. I mean, he's done stuff, but nothing you'd know. Same thing with Miss South Africa, Miss World, whatever. I guess she won it, and she put on a dress made of Kirkerans, which is the money of South Africa, which may be still at the time, and they have political issues and devaluation, all sorts of weird issues and all that too. So I don't, that at the time was probably considered very, not appropriate, I guess. And I don't know. The girl's young, she's blonde, she's naive, I'm guessing, or whatever. She's young in her life. So I don't understand, how big some of these people might have been. But when you look at everybody, while these people were very solid in their field and made a movie, they all didn't really end up really doing much at all. So how crazy is it that you can get a group of people that are like this as a fighter, get them together, make a solid enough movie, and then nothing else really happens. And like, I'm not bashing John Wick when I say this, but again, I've mentioned this before about how TV and movie studios are kind of dead to me, is that you spend 200 million plus on a big blockbuster, expecting everybody to see it. You have an insane body kill, which you don't really remember 99% of them. You might remember a character too, and it still comes down to storytelling. You could have had 50 to 100, I'm not joking when I say that, say 50 of these movies made for like 5 million each, 250 million. You're not going to hit on most of them, but you're going to have several successes. And you have a lot of different kinds, and you might be able to come up with your own franchise, but Hollywood and TV will not do that. They'll just keep regurgitating stuff. And how incredible, again, is it, like I was saying, that you can get some people together to make a solid movie that don't really do anything, and yet everybody now relies on the blockbuster thing for movies. And that's why that's all failing. You can really easily lose your audience now and make it where it's too expensive to go. The quality is for shit, and doesn't matter how much the budget costs, it still looks like shit. This is a movie that's cheap as hell. It's got just capable enough people. The writing's decent enough. The scenes are somewhat memorable enough. It's not horrible, to your point. And so for that, I give it a lot of credit. It's surprisingly held up to me because it's been so long since I've seen it.
Yeah. Now I know where I saw James Ryan first. From Dusk to Dawn, too. The Texas Blood Money.
And doesn't he look a little bit, honestly, when I talk about the knockoff different characters, how they remind you of different people like Keith David, James Coburn? What does he remind you of? He looks a little bit like Jackie Chan.
Well, to me, around? No, his facial features. I know I said James Varney, but I'm also seeing Lou Diamond Phillips.
Yes, no, that's a good one too. Yeah. I can see that as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I was looking at his movies and stuff. He's, and it makes more sense because I remember I did watch the sequel from Dusk to Dawn, the sequel movie. Before I watched that, just like I watched, it's just whatever was on TV back in the day. That's what I watched. And it happened either one. So I said, like, I know I've seen it before. Now, like, I was going there on TV. I'm like, oh yeah, he was in this. He was in this too. He's just got one of those memorable faces. Rage to Kill is another one that popped up here too. Yeah. Anyway,
any other final thoughts?
Final thoughts is that when you watch this movie, about half the people on his team are dead in real life now. It's mind blowing. It's like you watch it from the 40s. You're like, is the kid still alive?
I know, right?
Yeah, I know. Hot Dog died at 58 years old. Oof.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you guys had fun with this, you guys want to see some more reviews, more martial arts stuff, or anything else, just let us know down in the comments down below. And we'll take a look at it. As always, we want to just thank you for being here. Stay extreme.
Yeah, this Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern live, we've got the second episode of Columbo, meaning the second movie, because we did the episodes. Yep. So we'll be doing that. I think it's a female killer, if I recall. So we'll be reviewing that live, and then we'll be going on live for something else. And then Father's Day in 2 weeks looks like it's going to be our yearly review of Commando, where we try to present something different version of of the movie each year as we review it, because it is the best Father's Day movie of all time.
Am I just putting all the Commandos in one playlist?
I like that. Good night, everybody. Good night now.
Good later, guys. Thank you for showing up.